name of Isabel's speech is Go Slow. We're going to hear more about it. She's doing a hot seat speech, which I think most of you know is a speech version of extemporaneous, table topics kind of extemporaneous speech. And she's going to be giving reflections on her recent trip to Belize. Isabel wants to test her extemporaneous abilities and refine some aspects of her extemporaneous presentations overall, particularly speed and organization while in the hot seat.
Isabel just got back from the most exhausting vacation of her life. She learned a lot, though, and that's why she volunteered to do a hot seat speech tonight. She'll do her best to take it slow. I like it. Here's Isabel.
I consider myself a planner. And for those of you who have heard my previous speeches, you know that I've described myself as a perfectionist. Everything is planned up to a T. I also consider myself well-traveled. And I apologize for the various voice cracks. I lost my voice on the trip. So as you can imagine, when I'm going on a trip, I plan everything to a T. But not for this trip to Belize. About a month ago, a friend of mine that I went to school with in Canada wrote to me and said, "What are you doing this week?" And I said, "I'll be working, feel free to come and visit." But what she meant is, let's go away. And as we were both really busy with work and the reality of our lives, we didn't have a lot of time to plan, which was very different from what I've done in the past. So what we did was we looked at some flights, and I had never really heard much of Belize before, but for some reason, I can't recall how, it just popped into my mind, and I thought, let's go there. Looked at the flights, and they were the cheapest compared to everything else. For those of you who don't know, like my Uber driver, Belize is not in Europe, it is in Central America, and it is a 4-hour direct flight from Los Angeles, and I highly recommend that everyone adds it to their bucket list. So we booked our flights, and we didn't really chat much for the next couple of weeks, and then we realized, okay, we're going to be leaving in a few days, so the only thing we did plan was our first night hostel. So we thought. So we meet at the airport in Belize, and we take the water taxi over to a small island called Nickola, which I asked before, no one has heard of, but again, add it to your bucket list. So Nickola, we arrive, and we immediately get off the water taxi, and we start walking around with our backpacks, and we ask everyone where Sand Star Hostel is, and no one knew where it was, and we thought, well, that's rather strange. So what ended up happening is we booked a hostel that didn't exist on the island, and so the one plan we had fell through. So what we ended up doing was just walking around, particularly the whole island with our backpacks, because it's rather small, only 2,000 folks live there. And we kept looking for this mysterious hostel and eventually walked into one called Sandy Lane. It had a similar name, but it turns out no reservations because you can't book online. So that just cleared it. I checked my credit card statement. I never actually booked it. So I think at night I was quite delirious and I'm not quite sure what happened. So this truly was the first proper trip or holiday I've ever been on where nothing was planned. And it was the best decision that I've ever made. Truly amazing. unBELIZEable, as they say. I wish I came up with that on my own, but I didn't. So we eventually checked into the only place that could offer us a room, and we just set off. We had plans, like a minor itinerary in our head of what we would do, stay in Nickola for a few days, take the water taxi back to the mainland and do some adventure and exploring, cave tubing, trekking, all that. None of that happened. We ended up staying on Nickola the entire trip, which was incredible because, again, in my whole life, I've never not had a plan. And one day, we actually were all ready to go. It's 5 p.m., it's the last taxi that can take you off of the island, and we have our backpacks, and we gave them our ticket, they took our luggage, and we're about to step onto the ferry. And then we looked at each other and thought, why the hell are we leaving? We love it here, and we don't have to go anywhere else because we didn't book anywhere else. So we turned around and walked off the ferry, and went and picked our, I think at that point it was our third place of accommodation. In total, we stayed in 4 different places. So it was an incredibly liberating, empowering feeling to feel like when you plan your holiday, I mean, when you live your life, you're living it for yourself. No one told us what to do, and we didn't have to follow any itinerary. And for me, I've always thought about traveling, and I'm curious what everyone else here thinks too, is that it's a bucket list. You're checking things off. So I could have gone to Nickola, San Pedro, San Ignacio, Placencia, Hopkins, all these places. It was feasible in 1 week. But why the hell would I do it if that's not what I wanted to do? So a couple takeaways I had from this trip that I want to share with all of you and eventually get your thoughts on too, is the best plan is not to have a plan. Sound terrible? And not to lose your voice. The best plan is not to have a plan because of 3 reasons. First, with no expectations, you can't be disappointed. So we went to Belize after I bought a small little Lonely Planet book, but I truly knew nothing about the country. I knew they spoke English there, which was fantastic and helpful. I knew that it was located by the Caribbean waters, so I did picture that I'd get some sun exposure and be in the water. I'm sure you can see I'm a shade darker too. And we weren't disappointed because we had no expectations of what we were going to do, what we were going to eat, who we were going to meet. It was amazing. The second thing is the relationships you can build when you stay longer in one location. So my natural history has been to go to so many different places that, yeah, maybe you connect for a day or two and you add the person on email or WhatsApp or Facebook, but you're not truly connecting with them, the people that live on the island, the people that you're meeting at a bar or a restaurant at the beach. So the relationships really are taken to a whole different level when you allow yourself that time to truly immerse yourself in the culture. My snorkel instructor, I met Monday morning, and at night I'm getting my hair braided by his mother. And I didn't realize until she said, "Oh, I heard you met Oxy earlier," because they had chatted and everyone knows each other on the island, and I just thought that was so unique that the island was so small that everyone knows everyone. And then the third point about why it's the best plan is not to have a plan is that you adapt to the pace and the style of their life, of where you're traveling. So the expression, go slow, I am going to adopt being back in LA in this very fast-paced environment. But at work today, I saw myself like running to the coffee machine and then back-stepping and realizing I'm in no rush. I have a million emails to catch up on, so I'm really in no rush to get through those. So the idea of going slow is so refreshing. But that's the motto of Nickola. Wherever you go, wherever you travel, as you're immersing yourself in the culture, because that's what I picture is the reason why we do that, why we leave our culture and we go somewhere else is to adapt to their lifestyle. And so when you allow yourself that time and you don't make a plan, you'd be surprised to see what you're going to pick up on, what feelings are going to be evoked, what you're going to walk away with. So I do a lot of journaling, and I think it's so important because you take that time to reflect on what you learned from that experience. It's not like you go, you come back, you feel miserable because you left the beautiful Caribbean paradise. So overall, despite realizing how quickly I talked through the speech, I do encourage all of you to adopt the mindset of going slow. Find various moments in your life where you could just take a breath and just relax and go to the beautiful ocean that we have to our right, I think. Somewhere. In that way, behind Marina. So remember, go slow. The best plan is not to have a plan. And thank you for listening to my travels through Belize.